Hello, everyone. Welcome to another lovely edition of Tangents with Alex and Jason, part of the Biff Bang Pow podcast. He-Man and Masters of the Universe has been in the news lately because of this new film that's going to be coming out. Alex is a bit of a fan of the inception of all that stuff, and we talk about where the influences come from and where it went and what our hopes are for the movie, how that's going to be. So hope you enjoy it. Let us know what you think.
Alex, here we are again. More tangents, more spectacular dialogue between Alex Ross and Jason Lenzi. How are you doing this fine evening?
Very well. How are you?
Well, I'm okay. Not quite that good, but I'm gonna try to get some of those vibes. Trying to take some of your wellness. I'll take some of your wellness. Um,
Oh, good. That's more than I can handle, so please let
oh,
me pass
good.
it along.
Thank you. Thank you. I thought it would be fun in light of as we're recording this, very recent, the first trailer for the Masters of the Universe motion picture has dropped, as the kids say. And this is something we've been hearing about for literally for decades. There have been rumors about or stories about, are they going to try another live action He-Man film? Of course, we got the one from '87, Dolph Lundgren and Frank Langella and Billy Barty, or maybe no, I forget somebody. Um,
Yeah, it was Billy
Billy
Barty.
Barty,
Yeah,
yeah, Billy Barty. God bless him,
yeah.
Billy Barty. Um, but also because you and I have had many conversations about the property. You have worked with the property, and we'll get to that. But um, I think our affection for it is kind of similar. I think you have more affection than I do, but I've always appreciated it. But tell me what your affection for the character, the stylistic, the toys themselves, the design work, everything that kind of birthed it came from. What all that is.
I can't remember for certain, mid 80s when we were both in our mid teens, and this certainly came around as a cartoon, but I think I saw the toy line first,
Mm-hmm.
and then the cartoon, whichever thing is hitting between what, 83, 84, something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say 82, but you might be right with 83. It's, yeah, somewhere like that. It's
Okay.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, so it's sort of like in this weird, and I got many books on the subject. I've bought books that they've made in the last 10 years on the history of it and all the ephemera, because even though I don't have a collection of the toys, I love the designs, and that was what I was reacting to,
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
it in stores. It's like, I love this abstraction, like in a way, it was taking all the machismo that was really not inhabiting the toys of the 70s, like where Amigo dolls didn't have that physicality of the muscularity you expected on heroes. And
Mm-hmm.
now with bodybuilding being ascendant and Schwarzenegger's impact on popular culture, people understanding that certain uh, sculpting of the human body, Ferrigno, all of that was in the limelight so much more, and now these toys are an abstraction of that shape. And I just love the fact that they brought it forward that way, but it was also juvenile in its treatment because here you've got that sculpting out of the body, but then the little legs makes it this sort of thing of we're not taking this that seriously, just like the names are clearly farcical. And it would seem like, okay, I didn't feel my superheroes were farcical, but this clearly has that aesthetic of feeling like this was designed by guys figuring out, like, yeah, let's make some toys for kids. You don't have to make them sound all that serious. And
Right, and on the shoulders of, because I think you're nailing it with the era, the bodybuilding fascination, the something that looked very different to what had become the standard. Really from '78 forward, with 4-inch figures, and Migos, 8-inch first, and then the 4-inch, and then you get this different kind of design and the colors, and it was very vibrant and everything. But and I know I saw the documentary, which I thought was really well done. Years back, and you probably know more about the process than I do, or the timeline. But these were guys too that were there was an affection for Conan and that style of artwork, and those covers of the Savage Sword of Conan and all that, all that stuff that we kind of absorbed. You
Well, I mean,
probably more.
it's got that relationship to Conan in the same way that Star Wars has to Flash Gordon. Is
Right.
that Lucas wanted to get the actual license, couldn't get it because I mean, on the one hand, that documentary we just watched said that the deal was already made with De Laurentiis, and in the other stuff I'd read, it was that they just wanted too much, and Lucas wouldn't pay the. It was like a percentage take of how the film would do that was outrageous to have to pay the license owner.
That's what I'd
So
always heard too. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
yeah, so basically he went off, created his own version of the same. In the case of Conan Properties was ascendant with Marvel. They might have even already had their movie deal going at that point in the late 70s. So when Mattel is trying to figure this thing out to do it as an official license, they balk at whatever the deal would be, and they just decide, okay, well, how can we spin this also in the wake of Star Wars? How can we give it a veneer of Star Wars? And again, much in the same ways that you had happen to the Japanese property of Gatchaman being turned into Battle of the Planets. Had nothing to do with a space opera, but they made it become that. And here,
Right.
what is effectively Conan and the skull-faced design of Skeletor is from Thulsa Doom, which is the villain in that movie and the original stories, or at least some of them. So those two characters, Skeletor and He-Man, are both basically slight variations, and when I say slight, I mean color variations. The basic designs are the same as what
Mm.
this pulp stuff was, except they weren't describing, or Robert E. Howard wasn't describing Thulsa Doom as having blue skin and a bright yellow skull face, but he was describing a skull face underneath a hood. I assume it was a mask, whatever the case was, but and then Conan effectively, as an action figure, was either the Mego one with rooted hair, which no matter what, if you're doing the rooted hair, it's going to look like a girl's doll because of the way that does. And if you sculpt it, then you have the problem of, well, for playability, you need to turn the neck, to turn the head, which means, well, shorten the hair down.
Right.
So when we think about this Prince Valiant cut for the hairstyle of He-Man, that's more an affectation of the cartoon show, what way they transformed the toy into Filmation show, because you look at the toy, and if you realize, just put black hair on top of it and think about the hair flowing outward longer than the neck, and you realize it's just a sculpt of Conan.
Well, especially that, because you have always pointed this out to me too, that original sculpt, that original face, that first wave, he's got, I think even when they redid them recently as like a retro, but more articulated line that came out,
Yeah.
they didn't. I don't remember if they did the very same face, because I remember talking to you about it. And
They have had a recent release that
okay,
for like the anniversary of it, and it is
it is the
I
same
believe
one.
it's about as close as they've gotten. They've had some trouble, I think, in previous releases where they've tried to match the way that the original sculpt was. Probably they don't have assets anymore,
Right.
and so they're trying to cast existing figures that people own to be able to manufacture something that looks exactly like it, but they're not producing it with the same kind of soft plastics, as far as I know.
But it's a
That
great
age
sculpt.
badly.
That original sculpt is really, you're right. I mean, it really
It's
is.
gorgeous.
He's got that kind of a, bit of a scowl, growl kind of, he looks pretty badass.
And it always reminded me, in a subtle way, of the Mego Hulk head.
It does, yeah. I'd never put, yeah, it does kind of. It does kind of. A little bit,
And
yeah.
of course, that Mego Hulk head reminds you of the Hulk artists of the time, which I think more of, like, say, probably the Buscema brothers, both Sal and John, in what they brought to it as draftsmen. So there's something there that's kind of right on model for the nature of the Marvel art style. And so I feel that symmetry with Conan, which of course was a Buscema art kind of effect going on in the 1970s, and well, for a long time, for a good 20 to 30 years, the impression of Conan in print was more Buscema than it was Frazetta,
And
because the legacy.
wasn't there? I want to say Joe Jusco. Didn't he do some
Jusko
covers?
was also he was a devotee to Buscema. So whatever version he was trying to paint, he
Got
was
it.
always very much trying to bring John's style to life in paint, and so his body of work is reflecting that influence very heavily. And the few times I've gotten to do it, I tried to do the same thing as Joe, to commune with the spirit of Buscema, and actually he, like I, got a chance to even work with Big John once ourselves. So we're very lucky boys.
Yeah,
I
you
should
are.
say.
But it's all. I mean, my recollection, which may be hazy, um, for whatever reason.
Because of all the drugs.
I was gonna say I didn't want to go there, but yeah, we might as well. Let's be honest in the show. The massive quantities of drugs over the years, um, but those covers that I think of, like those collected volumes or the color covers of like some of the Savage Sword or the Hulk, not the compendium, not the one I got as a kid, but the different ones where it looks more painted to me, and you start to like get the veins in the arms, like it's much more graphic, which was I always thought was riffing on the bodybuilder stuff where you got that much
Absolutely.
more
Yeah.
detail. And it's all kind of in this brew, this melting pot. And you've got, I mean, Conan comes out in '82. Then you get the Sword and the Sorcerer, I think, in '83. Beastmaster. All this stuff is kind of happening around the time of the He-Man stuff, and of course, as most people know,
But you also don't want to discount that's the movie aspect of it all. But in all other parts of popular culture, within print, magazines, and um, I'm trying to think of. I mean, the ascension of Frank Frazetta, his general motif was the sword and sorcery kind of aesthetic, and that effect was going, worldwide. And so Conan is the apex of that genre. And so it's only as the 80s finally becomes the era where the movies were just pounding out there, one after the other. The embrace of bodybuilders like Lou Ferrigno and Schwarzenegger being the leads of such things. And, so we didn't have a lot of that in the 70s, but you had almost everything else happening in the decade.
right? And a lot of these films that did get made, and a lot of the material was a little more adult oriented, a little more aimed at an adult market, shall we say?
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest appeals of it, is the idea that you're going to see some boobies, maybe.
Well, yes, and some of the stuff in the Conan, like I said, I watched that recent documentary about the um, who did I tell you, the artist, no, the writer, I forget now, but it was about the Savage Sword book, and went to some very dark places, and a lot of booby places too. So here you get the toy line, and of
Did
course,
I just get us canceled, by the way, by using the word boobies? Is
no,
that
I think boobies is okay now.
is it?
I think
Wow.
there's been a moratorium for a while, but I think it's, all things considered, language wise, I think we're okay. They but
Well,
the
actually, can we use that as a springboard just for a second, because
please,
it's called tangents?
I love
Think
how you use
about
the
the
word
other.
springboard too, along with the same
Oh, hello.
subject.
Um, think about just the fact that, like, part of the sexual appeal that starts to then relate directly into the He-Man verse is those toys were the first time I can note in toy history, in at least the modern age, which I don't know the pre-1890s era of toys, or I should say the 1800s, like whatever they were doing there, I have no idea about. But you had Barbies limiting the sort of general shape. You either had girl dolls that are infant shapes, most times they're sculpting, and then the adult female form was arguably based upon this German sex doll thing, which then was pretty much taken and cloned as Barbie,
Right.
but yet it also seemed incredibly desexualized, because even though it's supposed to be this ideal that's hard for a woman to live up to, like somehow the raised boobs is a thing, like nobody could be built like this. Well, part of it is just the thinness of it, the thinness of the form. So when you got these dolls made from Mattel,
Yeah.
they finally had thigh shapes. that
You know,
were akin to women's thighs.
you got there before I did because I was gonna go there because I thought that was one of the most extraordinary bits of that documentary. I never really put that together, that what they were doing for the first time. The shape they were making the female figures in, the hips, the legs, the way they were articulated, etc. Really hadn't been done before. That was
No,
revolutionary in itself, and you know, a huge leap forward for such things. You know, if we're just talking about toys,
for perverts.
and filthy perverts. But as everybody probably knows, this was when that everything changed, and you could make a TV show. You could before it was you could have an animated series and you could make toys from it, but you couldn't make an animated series based on a toy line. There was a conflict of interest there, and it all
And
changed.
Reagan changed the laws.
Reagan changed the laws between that um,
And by the decade's end, that
and
change completely obliterated the landscape of cartoons being sold that were original conceptions
one hundred
that
percent.
weren't attached already to toy lines and toy company owners.
And
So
that's what,
basically,
to bring it back to Flash Gordon again, if I may, because it happens to be the same company. I have racked my brain trying to think of a Saturday morning cartoon that ever got a toy line the way Flash Gordon did. Because it was it could have been a brief thing. Maybe it was going to be on for 3 years, 4 years, who knows? But it's like, let's jump on the sci-fi thing and do it. And they made that incredible toy line for the 1979 Flash Gordon series. Um, it was rare then even to have a Saturday cartoon. You had cartoon characters that were made into toys and things, but it wasn't like a toy line sort of. So that was kind of as close as we got. The
yeah, I
timing.
mean, I don't even know. Do you know if at that time, if there were any toys of the kind that, like, say, the stuff Hanna-Barbera owned, like Scooby-Doo or Flintstones? Was there much stuff created in that decade?
Oh, absolutely. You had
There was.
Flintstone. Those
Okay.
well, those like those vinyl type rubber. Was it Dakin, Dakin, that made those sort of the almost shampoo bottle type figures that the arms moved, and Bugs Bunny and Fred Flint. I mean, you had stuff. There were toys made of the Flintstones. I think when the show was on, and certainly as it syndicated. But for a new product to go, we're going to hit this thing with a toy line too, based on this show, because it was an existing character, I suppose. I mean, there were, like I said, there were Saturday morning characters that got toys made of them and stuffed animals and things like that. But I don't know of another show that was like, it's the Croft Super Show action figure line, or the Love Bug, not Love Bug.
Wait, you're saying you don't have your own set of Bay City Rollers figures?
There you go. See, that's perfect. The Bay City Rollers would have been something you go, well, why didn't they get a set of little Migos or something? It was right around that time. They should have. They had
That guy had a kilt, man.
yeah, they had a few minutes of of that. So that all changes in He-Man, and then everything we get
By the way,
after it.
everybody listening to us has to be over 50, is what we're basically saying here. You
Well,
know.
here's my admittance. I admire He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and Skeletor and Beastman, and I even like the play on words with Manny Faces. But a lot of it is, as you say, Stinkor and all those guys. Like it really became aimed, in a different kind of direction.
But I
But I've
guess the thing is, I could think it was, juvenile and repugnant in some ways getting into my mid-teens, but I was finding it aesthetically very compelling and charming. Just a lot of it is the
oh
color choices
yeah
and some of the design things. Like, just to highlight a few things, say like, was it Buzz Off? Is what I just find an absolutely exciting, fun design for a Yellow Jacket
yeah
be,
yeah
to be represented as a character design.
and
Stinkor looks gorgeous.
Stinkor,
You
Fuzzman.
know,
Wasn't there Fuzzman or Mossman, or the guy that
Mossman
had
was
that
a
texture?
flocked
Yeah,
version of
yeah,
Beastman.
yeah.
Yeah,
Flocked. I
in
mean,
green. So,
yeah, I appreciated all that stuff, and I watched
and the
the
thing is, I
show.
know most of this not because I knew it perfectly well at the time. I mean, because I wasn't investing in it at the age I was, I probably didn't have much money yet, from my allowance to buy stuff. I pretty much, once I was in my early teens and I learned of my comic store in my area, all my money went to buying comics for what little I could accrue in that time because I was
Right.
obsessed.
Right.
And I would have loved to buy toys, but I generally was used to asking for them once a year for Christmas and getting, whatever percentage of whatever I was really wanting.
Right.
So because I had no anchored connection to these characters like the comic stuff, it wasn't a drive. It was more like I looked upon them fondly and thought, I might be aging away from this, but boy, I love toys. I would love to keep up with it, but I've got to choose. It's a Sophie's choice of things, and also realizing there was a changing of popular culture that I was maybe not on that edge for. It's not
Well,
for me
yeah,
per se.
yeah, I think we're right there, except I veered off more into, uh, music and, girls, still
You
movies and.
always have to rub that in. You
Well, what I mean
always
is
have to bring
no.
that up.
What I mean is, I was kind of there is a sort of closeted. I'd pick things up now and then, chunk of time in my life before it blossoms again, where I just kind of go, yeah, that's cool, but I just kind of put it all away for various reasons. And also, I look at the show now, and again, Filmation, right back to Flash Gordon, Mattel, same toy company, Filmation, same animation company that has been doing stuff for years. I mean, hits the jackpot with He-Man, and I try watching it now, and I'm not. This isn't being critical. It's just that it's, when Orko shows up, and it's, and the music
Yeah.
changes and somebody falls over with a bucket or something. If I could pull all that stuff out and just give me the adventures, and then even cut out the bits at the end of, like, do you eat spicy food? You have to be careful before you go to bed if you eat spicy food, and all those little messages and stuff. I still love the designs and the idea of it. I mean, I had the first, 4 or 5 figures that came out, and I kept the little comics that were done by fairly renowned people, right? Was it who were some of the artists? Those original little mini comics.
Um, Honestly, I only remember that Bruce Timm
Bruce
cut
Timm.
his teeth on working on some of that stuff. I don't know which ones. I don't
Yeah,
know how much of it he did,
yeah.
but
I
he was
loved
one
all
of
that.
those people,
Yeah,
and I can't remember who else.
and I didn't see the movie in the theater. I
And
saw it
the
on.
comic book that was actually made first was under license with DC, and it was actually it was within their DC Comics Presents, which was their Superman team up title, just like Brave and the Bold was Batman's, and so it would be Superman meeting the cast of the Masters of the Universe.
Oh,
So
I don't
he
know
was
if I
in
knew that.
Eternia.
I don't know if I never
Yeah,
knew
it's
that.
been reprinted a lot. I mean, in
Oh,
fact,
wow.
a few years ago when Mattel had the toys coming where they had both DC and Marvel stuff licensing at the same time, they did re-release. Well, they did new figures pairing, a DC character with a Masters of the Universe figure, and then they would, I think, package that comic in there, reprinting it. So that got a lot of reprint recently, and it was drawn by Kurt Swan of all people.
Well, so what I'm going for here, what I'm trying to get to, the trifecta I'm going for here is Flash Gordon,
Uh,
Mattel having a toy line out, Filmation, then we get to He-Man, Filmation, Mattel, sci-fi-ish, fantasy, etc. Alan Oppenheimer doing the voice of Ming in the Flash Gordon Filmation series and the voice of Skeletor. Here comes this new film, because I'm sure most people listening, you and I have seen the Dolph Lundgren thing. I don't think it's a terrible movie. I think it's fun, and I think he looks pretty cool and all that stuff. But this is something that we've been hearing about for years and years and years, and I want this to work. I'd love it if there were 4 or 5 of these things, and they really did it cool and not jokey and not campy. Wink at the audience, but don't. I mean, this is the time. So when I first saw the trailer, my thoughts were, we've talked many times about what Taika Waititi did with Thor Ragnarok, and he's when he's saying things like, if Queen were around now, I would have had them do the score. He gets Mark Mothersbaugh, getting close. But it's
And
got
of
that.
course, Brian May's sitting there going, "I'm right here."
Yeah, he can still do it. Um, but he's got, it's got that Kirby look to it, and it's clearly, I see a lot of influence. We've always said that Flash Gordon the movie, nothing looks, tastes, smells like it ever before or since. But I see flashes here and there, little bit in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, the second one, a
Yep.
little bit in Ragnarok for sure. And so when I think of this He-Man movie, I'm thinking now's the time. It's I don't need it to go as far as Flash Gordon did, or to be that audacious, but now's the time to kind of turn the volume up a little bit and bring out some more color and some more razzle dazzle, if you will, because it lends itself to that. And do you agree with that, or do you think it's
Oh, 100%.
okay?
Yeah, I've been feeling that way about genre material for a while. Is like it doesn't need to all be Star Wars. Star Wars was the brilliance of, say, take the brightly colorful comic basis and then subdue colors for the sake of credibility of what would be accepted. Like that was an instinct that must have gone just beyond um, Ralph McQuarrie designs to Lucas having an innate understanding that this is what's going to serve him well in bringing this thing to market. It's going to hurt if the leads are dressed like they're from Lost in Space. If they've
Right.
got vibrant colors all over them. I mean, hell, the effect there seems like it's affecting immediately what you get with the motion picture of Star Trek in '79. So 2 years later, what you get there is pure gray outfits, wiping away all the color from the TV show,
Yeah.
almost to be in mind of what happened, what worked so well for Lucas. Whereas you reserve color for spotlighted elements, very selectively chosen in the sense that, like, okay, straight up gold for the robot, but because it's chrome gold, and because they beat the heck out of him so much with the tarnishing and whatnot he goes throughout the film, it's subdued, and the leads are wearing, everybody, good and bad, they're all wearing various earth tones
Yeah.
and black and white.
Yeah.
And I think that's a thoughtful reflection of not just the Asian influence of the Kurosawa films that he's pulling in as part of his info dump, but it's a very subtle kind of subversion of his initial influence, the comic strip stuff that he was wanting to connect with in the first place. So there's a lot of thought going on there, but because that formula was so successful there, it denies that you could really successfully embrace color and still compellingly make a thing that utilizes it. And luckily, in the case of our beloved Flash Gordon, they didn't have that sensibility. Nobody got the memo over in Italy when they were building those costumes and the
Right.
sets and everything.
Right.
So nobody was thinking the way that Lucas was.
No.
Obviously, Lucas won in that particular equation, but
Well, but
it
it
also,
does lead to the question. So you get Danilo Donati, the set design, all the color, like all the costume, everything for Flash Gordon. As we know, there's a giant language barrier, and he's doing his own thing, and nobody can tell him what to do because he's got De Laurentiis in his pocket, so on and so forth, and he's worked with Fellini and all this stuff, and you get that. So it leads to the question, which would be, if Lucas had gotten Flash Gordon, Star Wars never happened. So he doesn't get it for the reasons we've stated. No one knows 100%, I guess. He goes and makes his original thing. Star Wars is birthed by the loss of Flash Gordon. Had he gotten the rights, I wonder if he would have done the same thing. I wonder if he would have
I
still.
believe he would. I
Okay.
think that he would be true to his influences and say, I want you to take this seriously. So in a way, a Lucas-led version of Flash Gordon would resemble Star Wars. And it may not be an all. It's almost like if you took, do your mixture of the bodies in CG of Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill into a single person, because that's what it's like. You took Flash Gordon, you divided him into two different halves
Right.
or extremes of what that character was.
Right.
So um, it worked well with that dichotomy of the two different male leads that way, but it would have been just the one guy. And
It
again,
would
as
have
we
been.
know from,
It would have been earth tones. It wouldn't have been. I mean, the guys in Italy that are
yeah,
making Flash Gordon are literally looking to the original strip and trying to get it as accurate as possible with the costumes and
Well, they're also, I
the
mean,
budget
you know,
that they
think about it that way. The comic strip itself wasn't readily available to them or probably anybody at that time in history because that's from 1934 when it starts. So, you know, the original adaptation in film was by what, 36,
I
37
want to say
when
37
Buster Crabbe came out.
maybe.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's all in black and white. So basically, the color comes from I think, an edition printed in the early 70s that I would swear these hardcover collections, which
Oh
I
yeah.
bought some on eBay. I think that their abstract color, which was a complete recoloring of everything that was
Yeah.
done for the Sunday strips, I think that's what they were looking at as a reference point, and
Yeah.
that's where they got much of their ideas
Yeah.
of how to extrapolate vibrant color or to even embrace, like, the colors were just so kind of day glow in the way they were printed in this book. There is no sense of subtlety, whereas
Right.
the actual printing of comic strips in the heyday of comics was better than you would think. It wasn't day glow. It didn't feel like the 1970s blacklight posters. It does feel modest in the sense that this is printing on newsprint, but it's also very well articulated in terms of how it was managed. There was a lot of thought and attention put by those people making those strips and the publishers and the syndicates. You know, they didn't just knock it out there without any thought. There was care taken to that.
Well, and so it could be this combination of what you've just stated, the reprints, the way the color is in the reprints that they're probably working off of in '79, and then you throw in just the batshit abstract lunacy that is in um, a lot of different films and a lot of Italian films, and what Fellini did, and Danger Diabolic and Barbarella, and the kind of outlandish props and costumes and so on. You probably had them turning up the volume themselves again, just going, well, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they
let's
were
go even
inclined towards that,
further.
and then what they were looking at probably was in keeping with, like, their assumptions.
Yeah, and I think when I think of the skies in Flash Gordon and the different arborea and things like that. Like I just think He-Man. I go, why? That's what I wanted. I mean, and maybe we'll get more of it. This is a trailer after all. I'm not saying it looks bad at all. Um, this is just a trailer.
Well, the guy can certainly remind you of a lot of what was appealing about Sam Jones in 1980. That,
Sure.
you know, he's a pretty man with that full, longer blonde hair, which was also, I mean, this guy looks reasonably enough like the toy for He-Man, and Sam, while looking like Buster Crabbe in a modern skin, also had the veneer of looking like Bruce Jenner, who was a superstar in the
Right.
late 70s.
That's right.
And the feathered hair, the length of hair, and the tank top accoutrement is really a transformation based upon what was then really well known for, the attention that was on sports of Olympic sports, which
Right.
is the whole point of what Bruce Jenner's
Yeah.
legacy had
The
been at
the
that
Wheaties
time.
and the Wheaties box. But I'm saying I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
none of that really, like, that dude doesn't really worry me, because He-Man, it's similar in ways. Like, I'm not expecting a lot of depth or dimension. All you got to do is really pull. You got to pull it off. You got to. I always talk about Sam in that movie. He does the job. He does what's required of the job to be the square jawed hero in that
Except the
thing.
looping.
He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't. But he doesn't. He doesn't. It's like George Lazenby. It took decades for people to finally go, Lazenby's fine in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. He's not Connery. Nobody could have been Connery after Connery, but for a guy that had never acted before, he pulls it off, and it took decades for people to go, no, that's a great film, and he's very good in it, in what he sort of needs to achieve. So for me, I'm hoping that this thing, somebody recut the trailer to Princes of the Universe. They used that song by Queen, and it turned it into a different trailer. All of a sudden I went, oh, now we're talking.
Yeah, I
So
mean, honestly, if you can draft off of the body of work of Queen, I mean, Jesus, it would really benefit them. It would benefit anybody, honestly. I
yeah,
just
get
think
get
there's
someone
so much.
to do like someone like that to do the score, like some of the, I don't know, I feel like now's the time to go. And now that we've gotten to a place where, something that you've been wanting to see for many many years is now happening, where there's the yellow costume for Wolverine, and here comes the blue and yellow one for Cyclops, and so on. The embracing of more color is kind of happening, and it's been happening over decades as we got more and more of this stuff. And I think with this property, you can just swing for the fences. And
I mean, the weird thing of it is that you go back to the late '90s when the sense of like, okay, we have to get across this superhero thing to the general public in a way that's going to kind of slowly win them over. And what Batman had been doing was faltering, given that last movie in the mid '90s, and
oh yeah,
then so now it was a case of the success rate is built upon both Blade and Matrix were sort of showing the way of like, look, make them wear things that people would want to wear, that they
right,
could wrap their heads around wearing.
right,
And so by the time you've got X-Men foregoing all those colorful outfits for the leather jumpsuits and embracing black as a lead thing, you figure that's going to have an effect for a while. And the thing is, the while lasts a long time. I mean, arguably, yes, Iron Man's red and gold and most of the Marvel heroes that would be part of the cinematic universe development would follow what track they should be on for
yeah.
who they are.
In fact,
But it was a long build-up to get to the point. It's almost like saying, with the Wolverine yellow costume finally being in a movie, accepting that, it's like, boy, that took a long time,
yeah,
and that shouldn't have taken this long.
but you even got people forget, and they kind of smirk now. Captain America in the Avengers film, the first Avengers film, how bright that costume was, how different it was than what you saw in the first Avenger. They did go for the color, and then they started to pull it back a little bit, and then when by the time you get to Endgame, they're commenting within the narrative about like, I can't believe I wore it. Look at that thing. It's already kind of, so it is a delicate balance. Like, and I remember the uproar, not being I'm a comic book fan, lover, aficionado, if you will. You are the Yoda. You're the expert about all this stuff. But for me at the time, it was like, I
Meaning that
remember,
I speak backwards.
right. I remember the uproar and Wizard magazine and everybody just being Wizard embraced that movie. But I remember a lot of the chatter that started up on the early internet. And why just, oh, look it up, it's gonna be so bad because of the costumes. And you go, are you kidding me? Like this, I mean, that stuff's been going on, in fandom probably since the 30s. People writing letters to, dear King Features, I didn't think the last week's story was that believable, and blah blah blah. We've had this forever with a certain type of fan. But it all worked. It all worked, and then it sometimes it goes a little too far, and sometimes it pulls it, like, Thor's the first attempt with the hair and the eyebrows and whatever, and then it finds its way, and so it is sometimes a very delicate
Well,
balance.
like say when
With
they added
He-Man,
the most amount of color with Thor was in that last movie, the Love and Thunder movie, which unfortunately, uh, I think the color was working, the movie wasn't working.
right, right.
So like in a way, the advancement to getting to that point were really brought in. Like there's actual blue going on in his outfit. It's a gorgeous look, but boy, the movie
Yeah,
needed a whole lot of other things to work better for it, and
it's a
so it wasn't going to be the thing that got us there to now really embracing color. I mean, did you see trailers for the new season of Daredevil? He's actually got the symbol.
no, I have not seen that. I will look for that when we're done here.
I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise he looks like what you would remember from the Charlie Cox costume, but it was a surprise to
Okay.
see, oh, there's the two letter D's on his
Okay.
chest. Holy cow.
Yeah, I just think we're there now. But I'm comic book lore aside, and DC, Marvel, etc. aside, this is a This is literally a movie about toys. It's always been a toy line, a mythology. As much as everybody wants to make it Tolkien, and you're welcome to, it's not. That's not what it is. So it doesn't need to be deep. It doesn't need to be in the ancient days of da da da, and here's the Silmarillion and da 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 da. It is what it is. And I think you go, yeah, you don't want to make it, goofy. You don't want to do the 87 thing. There's a balance to it. And now's the time that you can embrace some more of that not outrageousness, but just you can go a little bigger with it. So
Yeah.
when I do see Man at Arms, I'd like a little more green and a little more yellow. And when I see, Battle Cat, I'd like a little more color, and maybe it will.
Well, I
Like I
feel
said,
like those
this is
colors are there in this new edition. I wish that they had just gone down to Muscle Beach and hired all the guys working there to play these parts, because I don't want anything less than the full-on steroid.
right.
I want
No,
all that blow up, because
that other
it just
fetish.
feels like okay. Here's a bizarre thing to compare it to, but it's right in the same realm. The long-running, popular game, Street Fighter, has always had abstract figures because they were built on an art style that was drawing everybody is built like the Hulk. And in the years of the games going into full computer renders and their cinematics that are built around their stories, whatever thing, they still adapt these things with these oversized frames. And if you ever, I guess, if you ever play the game, which I don't play any, I'll watch those cinematics on YouTube and be drawn in by the work done by those storytellers and animators to see how they bring these figures to life. So in a way, I would connect that to the world of He-Man design and say, all those figures have that shape. They have those oversized bodies, and all the female figures have these enormous thighs and, this sort of abstract sexuality that's very compelling. I would like to see that brought to full life in a thing, and that's where I'm still wishing for that, not wanting a compromise. And when you look at these videos that people keep posting online where they're bringing life to figures in AI and everything, that's one of the things that keeps coming through is that huge shape thing, because people want that. That's the source of it. That's the toy.
Oh, hey, do me a favor, Ross. Don't ever change, okay? Promise?
What?
No, I could listen to you for hours, but we have to wrap this up
Oh, good heavens.
because I got to get to the orphanage where I volunteer, and then get over to
Oh, yes.
the shelter, help people out. But no, this was great. So we agree that that we're
I feel
excited.
like you're shutting me down. I
No,
don't
I'm
know.
not. I'm not. I just love that it will always come back to aesthetics for you. It will always come back to the way your eye sees things, and it's not a That's not remotely a criticism. It's just
Well, to
you.
be fair, in this era of where we're developing in these films, I think we've gotten to the point where we've put up with interpretation for
I
enough
know.
freaking decades
I know.
that I just want the straight, pure stuff
I
in
know.
my veins. I
You
don't
want
want any compromises. I want a one-to-one transfer.
you want pure uncut is what you want. You don't want it.
Yeah,
You don't want it cut with the baby formula. You want it.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I get it. I get it. And I think we're going to get there, some baby steps, and maybe He-Man and the Masters of the Universe new movie is going to be the one to do it. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
All right.
All right, nice. Stand by.